So if you look at what goes on in Israel, there's different administrations. There's different policies. You've got political assassinations. You've got Orthodox Jews and the super, Orthodox Hasidic Jews. And you've got, the worldly socialist Jews that move there. And then all the other people that move there. There's dozens of groups. But there's a litmus test in liberal media. There's a litmus test in Hollywood. There's a litmus test with George Soros. There's a litmus test with the radical Islamic groups of hating Israel. But never looking at the mass murder Hillary and Obama caused by funding the Arab Spring and overthrowing non-radical regimes and our allies and putting radical Islam in. There's different maps of it that universities have put out, but if you type in the spread of Islam worldwide map, you'll get a lot of different variants and versions, and you'll see that Islam is expanding. Islam is not contracting. Christianity is contracting. Capitalism is contracting. Prosperity is contracting. And when Islam takes over your country, it doesn't let you continue to be free. All it does is expand. There are countries that are currently Islamic, and there are countries that are currently not Islamic. There is the House of Islam. There is the House of War. Islam is already in control of most European countries because they're parliamentary with more than 10 parties per country. You get 10, 15% that vote in a block, you have checkmate control already. Understand that, ladies and gentlemen. There's a devastating world map. If you're a radio listener, Infowars.com/show. You can go see this for yourself. But this is the reality. I've had the Islamicist groups, I've had the white supremacists, I've had the Hollywood crowd, I've had mainstream media bully me for 20 plus years that I've been on air with litmus test about, do I support Israel or don't I? And I've been very, very clear that I do support Israel. There's videos on YouTube that have been re-uploaded where I said that in 1997. And the reason I do is very simple. None of the Muslim countries like Egypt or Jordan or Saudi Arabia that surround the Palestinian lands, close quote, will take any of them. And I've gone and looked at the demographics of most of those people. They're basically nomadic groups that have come into the area as part of a Hajj or part of some type of jihad. Now let's explain this. Israel's this little bitty tiny country. All around it are these Muslim countries. And if you look at maps going back 100 years ago, time-lapse through today, big magazines have done them, TV stations have done them, news programs have done them. They generally show Islam spreading as green because that's the color of Islam, and you see it expanding, never contracting. And you've got almost 4 billion Muslims having 6 children on average. That means 3 billion by 2030. So within about 12 years. Hard to believe 2030 is only 12 years away. Wow, isn't that incredible? We're living in the future here. And the left and the globalists have allied themselves with radical Islam, and they've backed it to take over non-radical Islam and persecute Muslims, and then persecute Christians, and persecute animists, and persecute Zoroastrians, and Hindus, and Buddhists, and atheists, and straight, and gay. All over the world, Islam comes in, sets up, and then once it hits about 20%, it does not tolerate anybody else. In fact, it doesn't tolerate more moderate Islamic groups. It's a scourge. And you read the WikiLeaks from 2 years ago, The Jerusalem Post even had to report on it. Boy, the Israeli media is just as leftist as ours, tries to cover stuff up, that George Soros basically wants to break up Israel and end it. Get rid of it. What are you going to do with those millions of Jews that are there? Just push them into the ocean like Iran says? And you've got the 13th tribe, Kessler arguments that have been proven not to be completely accurate and say, well, most of them are European Jews, so they don't really have some genetic background. Oh, yes, they do. It may be a small genetic background, but it doesn't even matter. Jews were there thousands of years ago, and the idea that the whole Middle East can't have any Jews in it is the exact same idea that there can't be any Christians. Except where? Syria and Iraq and Egypt and Libya. And what did Barack Hussein Obama, who wears his little Islam ring with Arabic on it, and the first foreign speech he gave was in Cairo. They said it's like he's an imam. He speaks Arabic perfectly. There is no place for Christians all over the world, from Indonesia to Nigeria. Black Christians, black Ethiopian Christians, Sudanese Christians, in countries that were 95% Christian just 100 years ago. The Christians are being completely pushed out and slaughtered. So here's the coup de grace. I don't say these things about Israel to curry favor with the anti-Israel crowd. I say it because I like to give a full spectrum analysis. I don't like some of the globalist and leftist groups that basically use Israel as a place to launder money and to manipulate influence and to escape criminal actions here in the U.S. I don't like some of the leftist Israel lobby being involved in anti-gun movements here in the U.S. when they are handing out M16s and Uzis to their people, which they should. I got issues with Israel. But Israel's a diverse political system. Israel is not expanding and telling me I can't have a church on my street. Israel is not telling me that my children have to submit to Allah. Israel is not spreading like a virus. And George Soros, my enemy, the guy trying to destroy me, trying to overthrow this country, the Nazi collaborator, no matter how many newspapers and publications he pays to call himself a Holocaust survivor, he went on 60 Minutes and he wrote a book, and so did his dad, bragging how they helped round up thousands of Jews, saying it was the best time of their life, and they do it all over again. Do I have to play 60 Minutes for you again? He's after me, and they've basically told me in the lawsuits and in the news, stop doing this. I will never stop. You may be able to intimidate and push other people around, buddy. You're not pushing me around. So, it's called choosing a side. And there's big money behind being anti-Israel. I didn't even try to appease the anti-Israel crowd when I made a film about the USS Liberty and concluded it was a false flag between Israel and LBJ to start a war. LBJ done false flags before. It made the anti-Israel crowd even madder, saying I wasn't a pure Jew hater and I wasn't pure like them and all of their BS. I put that film out because if I'm going to expose false flags, that is an interesting and important one to make. And I interviewed Admiral Moore, who was the Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman, and others before he died. And I interviewed the head Judge Advocate General on the case to actually find out what happened 20 years ago. Before your average anti-Israel person even knew about the Liberty, I'd had dozens of guests on about it. But that isn't the issue. It's like if the U.S. government does something evil or bad, is every administration evil? Is our whole government bad? No. So all the bullying over the years, all the anti-Israel stuff, all of it is all part of a larger globalist UN, Sorosian program, and the Vatican is heavily involved, and they want the UN to come in and take over that holy city. Talk about bringing in revelation. You know, maybe I just don't want revelation to come in that quick. I got a 1-year-old daughter. I got 3 other children I love. Maybe I just don't like seeing it fulfilled, to have the Babylon whore and the false prophet in control of Jerusalem. Maybe just at a deep level, I don't like the UN taking control of Israel. Because that's the thing. That's who's going to take it over. And then they're going to start even bigger wars. You'll never satisfy the so-called Palestinians. The Arab countries won't take one of them. What does that tell you? Because everywhere you take them in, they try to overthrow you. It's what they do. And the suicide bombings with their kids and all of this crud and the fact that they're invading our countries and the globalists are bringing them in to our nations and telling us we've got a red carpet to them. And I've got articles here where they're telling churches take down their steeples, take down their crosses in Germany, that you can't have your church bells going at half the decimals of the call to prayer, but the call to prayer can happen. Christians are under attack. So if you look at what goes on in Israel, there's different administrations. There's different policies. You've got political assassinations. You've got Orthodox Jews and the super, Orthodox Hasidic Jews. And you've got, the worldly socialist Jews that move there. And then all the other people that move there. There's dozens of groups. But there's a litmus test in liberal media. There's a litmus test in Hollywood. There's a litmus test with George Soros. There's a litmus test with the radical Islamic groups of hating Israel. But never looking at the mass murder Hillary and Obama caused by funding the Arab Spring and overthrowing non-radical regimes and our allies and putting radical Islam in. There's different maps of it that universities have put out, but if you type in the spread of Islam worldwide map, you'll get a lot of different variants and versions, and you'll see that Islam is expanding. Islam is not contracting. Christianity is contracting. Capitalism is contracting. Prosperity is contracting. And when Islam takes over your country, it doesn't let you continue to be free. All it does is expand. There are countries that are currently Islamic, and there are countries that are currently not Islamic. There is the House of Islam. There is the House of War. Islam is already in control of most European countries because they're parliamentary with more than 10 parties per country. You get 10, 15% that vote in a block, you have checkmate control already. Understand that, ladies and gentlemen. There's a devastating world map. If you're a radio listener, Infowars.com/show. You can go see this for yourself. But this is the reality. Now, does that mean Israel's perfect? Absolutely not. Does that mean that Netanyahu has been caught, along with Obama, funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda as one of the warring groups trying to bring down Syria? And I get the Machiavellian view. Well, Syria's been our enemy for 50 years, and if we can take out, Assad, we're not going to let Al-Qaeda stay in charge. We'll obviously, then put another regime in. What, after ISIS and Al-Qaeda kill hundreds of thousands of innocent people? That's wrong, BB. But I say that from a position of moral authority, in that I don't hate Netanyahu because he's a Jew. And I don't think Netanyahu overall is a bad guy. I think he really believes in Israel, is a hardworking, focused person. But he's got blinders on for Israel, and that's what he's elected to do. And the globalists are trying to take him out of office just like Trump. But I'll say this. Trump is a leader. And Netanyahu said that, and it's absolutely true. Trump is a leader. This is called leadership, folks. This is called not doing the same thing, beating your head up against a wall for 50 years in a failed peace deal, while the Palestinians sit across the fence having 6 kids on average. And not one Arab country will take them because they use them, that big lake of humanity, as a weapon system. Incredible footage I saw today of Israel dropping tear gas on people from drones. Can we roll that? It was on CNN. And I remember seeing that. And I just remember being criticized 10 years ago saying, oh, look, this company's selling drones to drop tear gas and fire weapons, including hand grenades, and the media attacked me and said, Jones is insane. There's no plan to use drones to surveil rural property. There's no plans to put weapons on them or tear gas. And I remember it was in over 1,000 newspapers. It was the first time I was really hit with a full disinformation piece. And all I was doing was reading out of regional newspapers. But they didn't want to have a national debate about that. It's just so funny. It's like Jade Helm. It was in the Houston Chronicle, the Austin American Statesman, the Miami Herald. It was in so many papers I can't even keep track of it. That Alex Jones is run by Russian bots. And the Russian bots said that the military was going to invade Texas in 2015, called Jade Helm. I never said any of that. I'm going to cover some of that later. I said, look, it says Texas is hostile. This is part of conditioning the military for martial law if Obama ever wants it. And then we got the document last year where Soros' son was funding trying to create martial law all over the country with anti-police riots to trigger civil unrest so Obama could have martial law. So there I was saying Obama is funding the Justice Department to try to trigger race war. Now we have the documents proving it. And Obama had the military out running around doing this training for overseas and domestically to condition the public. And why do you think I knew that back at the time? It wasn't Russian bots. I was told that by the Army officers that were involved. That they supported what we were doing. They understood the media was putting out disinfo. That it was lies. That they were coming to bring in martial law. We never said that. We said, look, it has Texas listed as hostile. If you read the internal documents that were later released, it said to master the human domain and track everyone in live time using their cell phones, their social security numbers, their Facebook, their Twitter. And it was a practiced invasion of U.S. cities under Obama. But they used the PSYOP up front when I said, oh, look, this is training to take over America. Our own military was telling me this. They spun it and said, Jones says this summer they're invading and they'll take your guns. There's no video. There's no text. There's no article. It is a misrepresentation to, again, try to turn the military against the broadcast. But the military is actually listening. They know what I said versus how that was spun. But they keep retreading it. Let me stop there. On the Israel situation, the globalists are allied with Islam. They're trying to bring down the West. They're opening up our borders. They're using the Islamic threat to take our rights, and it's wrong. That does not mean that the Israel lobby doesn't get out of hand, and I have a problem with it. Just like the communist Chinese are the main influencer in our government, I don't like it. But I'm not an enemy of Israel. And Trump understands that a choice has to be made, and he's got to move the embassy and not be a coward to Jerusalem, like you do in any other country. And that he's got to stand up and be firm with the baby Palestinians who are suicide bombing their kids today all over the world. It's a whole bunch of suicide bombings all over the world. People blowing their little kids up. That's sick. That's satanic. That's child sacrifice. It's disgusting. But Trump understands that now he can come out with a really good peace deal that actually has concessions by the Israelis they've never done. With this olive branch to Israel, now he can come back to the Palestinians, and that's being announced. Just like North Korea, Trump really wants to try to fix these problems, but I don't think the Palestinians ever want to fix it because their whole identity is their women wearing hoods over their heads and cutting their little girls' genitals off and screaming Allah Akbar and putting plastic explosives around their children and having 6 kids and teaching Go north, go to Europe, conquer them. They are weak. I've got the Imam of Jerusalem, the head guy saying, we will take over Europe. Their women, their eyes. They are weak pig people. You know what? When somebody says they're coming to conquer me, I hear them, I believe them, and I'm raising the alarm. So Trump wants to break the stalemates with China, with North Korea, with the EU, with Israel and the Palestinians. Trump wants to negotiate better deals. There's an article up on drudgereport.com that we'll be covering in the next segment saying big pivot by the president. Trump vows to protect jobs in China. Well, he comes in with these big, tough announcements and hundreds of billions in all these different fines that we know China has been breaking agreements on. And then he comes back and says, but if you negotiate with us, we won't make it as harsh. That's not flip-flopping. That's negotiating. And that's beginning to move the country in the right direction. But things have been so lopsided with China that Trump needs to push this really, 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 really far. And to have the mainstream media up there complaining about $50 billion tariff on them when the trade deficit's $500 billion, not counting $300 billion in intellectual property stolen each year. And then now Trump slapped another $50 billion on them, so that's $100 billion. China has had it artificially set up on record. That's what globalism is, to deindustrialize this country. They're the anti-American team. They're bringing us to our knees through economics. We're going to get to that in a moment. I want to play some of these historic clips, though, of Jared Kushner. He speaks. He actually spoke from there at the dedication of the embassy that opens today. I can show you some of those photos. Put them up on screen. They're on Infowars.com, Newswars.com. There's a good one there with Ivanka Trump. Embassy, United States of America, Jerusalem, Israel. Donald J. Trump, president. Michael J. Pence, vice president. And it's so shocking that we would have an embassy in Jerusalem. That's how beat over the head we've been by the left. That's how manipulated we've been, that is a big deal. When I've got a stack of articles where they will not prosecute people in Germany, France, Sweden, Denmark, Finland for raping little girls. 25, 30-year-old men brutally gang rape little children. And the leftist virtue signaling media and judges say it's okay. And they're allied with Islam. Again, one of my only blind spots was 15, 20 years ago. People thought I was pro-radical Islam because I was against all these wars. I was against going into Iraq, and I still am, because we were destabilizing the more moderate countries that were standing up to radical Islam. And now we know the plan. It's declassified. To totally break the borders of Russia, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, Western Europe, and flood the giant demographic numbers in and create an untenable crisis, out of which comes a total socialist state allied with the Muslims. And I know I keep harping on this, but that's the global takeover plan. That's the demographic globalist World War IV. They call the Cold War World War III. But this whole technocracy takeover, allied with Islam, savage, evil, corrupt, Stone Age is here. And so that's what this is all about with Israel. Now, I don't think Israel, just like the U.S. and just like France, isn't playing a double game working with the Muslims and working to flood Europe and this whole exploitive plan. But with Trump and other patriots and nationalists, we're trying to change this and have a real policy of prosperity and a good future and put pressure on radical Islam to reform itself and to stop. And as soon as the West told Saudi Arabia, you pull up, we're not going to back your Wahhabist ways, they began immediate, seismic, real reforms. Because it's been the dog wagging the tail, folks. Saudi Arabia is the tail. The globalists have been using it. We could snap our fingers and overthrow Saudi Arabia in 5 minutes. And the whole global order to cuck the West and to militarize Islam and to flood everything and make a deal with the socialists in the future. That deal is horrible. That deal is crazy and abusive and psychotic. That's what the left does. Hitler tried to sign on with Islam to flood Europe. The same crap. And the Kalergi plan and all of it. We're not going along with it. And here's the deal. Unelected globalism. It's owned and run by the big tech giants and big banks, that each big bank, each big tech giant is bigger than most major countries' GDP. Last time I checked, Walmart had the 12th largest GDP in the world. Apple, last time I was looking at it, has more revenue than from the poorest 100 countries up. More than 100 countries put together doesn't have the GDP of Apple. I haven't looked at it in about a year. Let's look up companies that have GDPs bigger than major countries. It's stunning. Stunning. And these guys were setting up a world government where they're tax exempt, where they have diplomatic immunity, where they don't pay taxes. It's incredible. And they are on power trips, and they've launched a breakaway civilization with life extension and everything else. And they've made the decision. They've made the decision that the future doesn't need us. And just like everything else I told you 20 years ago is now admitted, folks better pay attention to this broadcast. Because all the known, researched, thinking people know what I'm saying is true. They just don't believe in you and think you're going to do anything about it. So they're just keeping their mouths shut. So we're going to come back and play these historic clips. Trump pre-recorded message for Israel embassy opening in Jerusalem. Netanyahu speaks before U.S. Jerusalem Assembly. Kushner speaks on strength of American-Israel relations. Now, the fact that I don't want to blow Israel off the map and let George Soros, the Islamists, have it, doesn't mean I support everything Israel does or some of the globalist, Israel First groups and the ADL. That's a pro-radical Islamic, anti-American organization, but they're nothing now compared to Southern Poverty Law Center. Goodness gracious, Southern Poverty Law Center is just a anti-American, anti-free speech disaster. But what I like seeing is American Jews really get on board with Trump and InfoWars. That's a good thing. People always accuse me of some weird mentally ill Jewish conspiracy I'm involved in when there's zero. To the contrary, Hollywood, leftist Jews and Soros, Nazi collaborators like him and others have attacked me nonsensically, continually, because they're all part of this globalist program. But real Jewish Americans are hard-working patriots. They're just like everybody else. They love InfoWars. They actually listen, and they know what's going on. And so I saw photos and articles of people out there supporting Trump with InfoWars shirts on, all the rest of it. And I like that. I'm not ashamed of supporting good people in Israel. I'm not ashamed of supporting good Muslims who don't want to be part of this larger caliphate. So again, it just comes down to that. I'm not with Soros. I'm not with radical Islam. And you bet I support Israel. But by being a supporter of Israel, then I can have more influence on things I don't like Israel's doing. See how that works? It's being realistic and not just on one side vitriolically or the other. All right, briefly. So I haven't even plugged yet today. We've got a bunch of amazing products. Whatever the best supplement is, we go out, get it, make it even stronger. Whatever's got the best results, best reviews, strongest stuff out there for energy, stamina, inflammation, bodies, 50% off. We've got X2 was about to be sold out. We got another emergency shipment in. It's back on sale for a few days, 25% off. Icarin liver and kidney cleanse is 40% off. Super Blue toothpaste, fluoride-free. It's 50% off. A bunch of those specials are about to end. InfoWarsStore.com is the main store. InfoWarsLive.com takes you right to the supplements. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
You're a white man! You're a white man!
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Oh, well," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you." "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. This could be the great Trojan horse of all time. Because you look at the migration, study it, look at it. Now they'll start infiltrating with women and children. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. Now she clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died." She stroked his pretty skin, and then she kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "I saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bit me, heavens wide. You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
Western Europe has already banned free speech, and an iron curtain of censorship is descending down over the UK. They're set to pass rules, not a law, that if you criticize Islam or gays, you'll get 6 months in prison. We know we're only about a year or two behind what's happening in the UK. CNN and many others are calling for InfoWars to be shut down, taken off the web. Slate magazine has a professor and others saying, go beyond censorship, brainwash young people against InfoWars, psychologically inoculate them with lies so they don't actually hear what we have to say. We are the most hated news source in the world by globalists. It is so critical that you go to Infowars.com/newsletter and sign up for the free newsletter so we can be in contact with you and so the censors can't bully their way in and block us being able to engage in free, open dialogue as a society. That is critical to this fight. We will prevail if you take action, and I know you will.
Staying healthy on the go is just as important as staying healthy at home. But sometimes supplements don't work fast enough. That's why InfoWars Life has created a powerful new addition to the Super Blue line, Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle. Available in 1 ounce, 3.5 ounce, and 16-ounce bottles, Immune Gargle is perfect for the bathroom, kitchen, or wherever you go. The incredible new purifying formula is dentist recommended for daily use whenever you feel like you need to stay clean. As a powerful hand purifier or oral cleansing formula, just a small spray will help you stay clean when you feel surrounded by toxins. With powerful yet simple ingredients, Immune Gargle features Silver Sol Nano Silver for a powerful cleansing alternative. With Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle, staying toxin-free is easy and affordable. Help stop the spread of toxins and stay healthy with Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle. Only available at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.